Welcome to the Expository Writing Rubric Calibration Training. My name is Maureen Nucleus, and we will be journeying today through the writing rubric using samples from TEA and also learning the different ways in which TEA looks at different writing samples through the lens of the rubric. The adjacent scoring model is what we will be adhering to in this benchmark that's in December for the expository writing. But also we're going to use it in the practice star. And I want to review the model with you. Basically, you have two people scoring each writing sample. One will be the classroom teacher. The other one will be another person that has been trained. Each one scores using the TEA expository rubric and having been trained through this training, and also sample anchor papers from the TEA expository scoring guide that were released last year. The adjacent model. Each person scores a writing sample, and their scores are combined. If the scores are within 1 point or less in discrepancy, then these scores are entered into Eduphoria as a combined score. So let's say I'm scorer 1 and scorer 1 scores at a 4. Scorer 2 scores at a 3. Those two scores will be combined, and it will be a 7. 7 is considered between satisfactory and accomplished writing performance. If there are 2 points or more of discrepancy, then the third scorer is required. And I'll talk to you more about that, but I want to go back to the adjacent model when two people score it. They can have the same score. I can score something, another person will have the same score. It could be a 3 and a 3, and that is a 6. So these two scorers will score. Their scores will be combined and put into Eduphoria if it's the same score, like a 3 and a 3, a 2 and a 2, or if they're only 1 point off in discrepancy. There are cases, and it's rare, when two people will disagree and have 2 points or more of discrepancy. In a case with TEA, what they do is they call for a third scorer, and we're going to do the same thing. Their third scorer is somebody else on the team. It could be another team member, a team leader, an interventionist, coach, somebody who you all feel could be another scorer who has been trained, and they will score it, and they will give it their score, and they will double it, or they will multiply it by 2. That will be scored into Eduphoria, so it will be inputted into Eduphoria as that score. It won't go on to another person to see what happens. So the third person would be the expert score that you might need, because it does happen sometimes. Very limited, TEA. Basic, satisfactory, and accomplished. Very limited is score 0.1. Basic is score 0.2, satisfactory is score 0.3, and accomplished is score 0.4. So where do you get 8? Well, when you have the adjacent scoring model, two people score and give it a 4, you add those together, you get 8. 2 score a 3 in satisfactory, it's a 6. 2 score a 2, and it becomes a 4, which is basic writing performance. And so that's where these numbers from 0 to 8 are, and that's where they come from. Also, 0 is considered non-scorable. Just want to say this really quick. Non-scorable are items that are written in another language, or they have not responded at all, or just copied down the prompt, or something in that area. It's rare to have non-scorables, but it does happen. I want to go over with you the very limited writing performance. We have organization, progression, and I want to go over the 3 points with you. But first, I'd like you to go into it yourself, read it yourself, highlight some things that you think are important to you, that jump out at you in the 3 bullets. And then pause the video, and we'll come back and talk about what we saw. Of course, I'm going to share from my point of view, and I'm sure you've had time to share within your group or with a partner. The first bullet under organization and progression, to me, that stands out, is that the organizing structure of the essay is inappropriate to the purpose or specific demands of the prompt. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically, they either didn't respond in an expository way, when they call it explanatory way as well. They may have written in the form of poetry. They may have written in the form of a narrative, a personal narrative, and therefore they did not respond to the purpose. The task is expository. They didn't respond to that. And then what were they supposed to write about? What were they supposed to explain? Now, if they don't explain it using what they're supposed to, and it's a little, if you can tell what they were supposed to have done, and you can see that they've tried to explain something in that area, it's fine. They're not real strict about that. But if you write something completely off, completely, you can't have any way, shape and form can see that that is related to the prompt, well then that would be a score point 1. And the organizational strategy goes back to the form and the purpose. The ideas are generally related to the topic, but the central idea is missing, or they may have 2 or 3. It's illogical, it's unclear. The progression of ideas is weak. You may have a lot of repetition, wordiness, going around in circles. I know it doesn't say that, but that's how I categorize it. Serious disruptions in the flow. It's random and illogical. Let's go over to the next one. Development of ideas. The development of ideas is weak. The essay is ineffective because the writer uses details and examples. Here we go, back to the prompt. Inappropriate, vague, or insufficient. Go ahead and go over the next 2 bullets and highlight some things and talk within your group. Go ahead and pause the video. The essay is insubstantial because the writer's response to the prompt is vague or confused. Weakly linked to the prompt. There we go. We keep hearing that same language. Then we talk about word choice. We're talking about the use of language. It's vague or limited, reflects little or no awareness of the expository purpose. And then when we look over here, it's very limited under conventions. And there are 2 bullets here. Go ahead and take some time to highlight those and then talk with your group. Again, you might want to pause this video. What I see is the sentences are simplistic, awkward, or uncontrolled. It's hard to read. It's hard to understand. Other things that can cause that disruption in fluency: severe spelling errors. Severe. Not just 1, 2, or 3. You're reading it through, you can't understand it, you're tripping over words. It's just very difficult for the reader to understand. There may be some little or no command of sentence boundaries. They're really big on that. A student may write one complete sentence, which is a complete run-on, all the way through those 26 lines, or how many ever lines they're going to have, or how many lines they ever choose to use. And they use 1 period at the end. That is considered no command of sentence boundaries. And so you need to look at it and read it as it is. If there are no periods or commas or any types of punctuation, don't put it in there for them. Read it as it is and see what it does to your comprehension. There may be some grammar and usage problems as well. If the errors are serious and persistent, and they create big disruptions in the fluency, it's going to interfere with meaning. And you as the reader would have to say, wait a minute, I don't get it. You have to go read it 2 or 3 times. Putting that effort into it causes you to get headaches. And in that case, it's a very limited writing performance. So let's look at the prompt itself. And so we have read the information in the box below, and here is the example. In the box they usually give types of examples to act as a stimulus or trigger for the brain to start thinking about certain ideas. When he was 8 years old, a boy named Paul Hogan watched firefighters quickly put out a small fire that he had accidentally started. He decided right then and there that he would become a firefighter someday, and he did. Think about the adults you know and what kinds of jobs they do. So you have the think. It went from a person having a particular job to now think of other people that might have some jobs. And then here is your charge, your right. Write about a job you would like to have when you grow up. It could be a fireman. It could be from some adults that you know. They're using this as a stimulus for the brain. But here is your charge. This has been narrowed. We want to go through these things with the kids so they understand how this is scaffolded to help them think of things. Write about a job you would like to have when you grow up. Explain what the job is and why you want to do it. And here's what we have that we just went through in the rubric. Here's what we have. So we went through the very limited, and then we're looking through it from the lens. Okay, now I know what they're supposed to have done. Now I can judge it accordingly. So about a job you'd like to have when you grow up and why you want to do it. So let's look at the first piece, which is considered a 1. I'm going to read it as is. I'm also going to try to be faithful to reading it as is as far as I can make sense of it. And the punctuation, if it's not there, I'm going to try not to put it there, because good readers automatically self-correct. And I'm not going to do that now. I want to be a doctor, so I could help sick people and help with cancer. I wanted to save the people from other sicknesses. I also wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be a scientist to invent new things and invent stuff like the other famous inventors. My other job I wanted is to be a police. I wanted to be a police so I could save people and protect them. My fourth job that I wanted to do is to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher so I could help other students learn more so they could read for their goal. The one that I like the most is to be a scientist. The scientist is one of the most of my best job I like. Okay, so there were some spelling errors there, but I could tell what they were. I can say them. I can figure it out. So that's fine to do that. And let's go see what the student, obviously we know that they received a score 0.1. The question is why? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go back to your rubric, and talking to your groups, why did they receive a score 0.1? What part of the rubric did they not excel in that was considered very limited? And then we're going to look at what TEA said. I can tell you my ideas, but I want you to have that time to talk within your group. You might want to pause the video. Okay, what did you see? Well, there are many things that I see that were strengths. As far as I can see for conventions, capitalization, punctuation was a strength. Now there are some spelling errors. There's some things that they could work on, but it wasn't to a point where it interrupted my thinking at all. I would say it's probably a 2 in under spelling, but what is it that brings it to a 1? Did they write in an expository way? Did they tell us what they wanted to be and why? Well, they did. But why did it get a 1? Development, to me. It wasn't developed enough because there were, I don't know how many central ideas here. So under organization there were several. It wasn't clear the central idea. I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that, I wanted to be, and it's okay, and you tell me why for each one. We want them to pick one central idea and then develop that. And then support it through their details that they're choosing to explain, whether it's an illustration, whether it's an example, and a description. It depends on what you want to use. But they wanted to be a teacher, they wanted to be a scientist, they wanted to be a doctor. All these things were confusing for the reader. So let's look at it and see. The writer of this very limited response considers 4 different jobs and ultimately selects a scientist as his desired profession. Although the writer maintains an appropriate expository form, the progression of ideas is weak. The lack of a clear central idea as well, as the writer's abrupt form shifts from one profession to the next, leads to an unfocused presentation. In addition, the writer's stated reasons for considering the jobs are vague and insufficient to invent new things and invent stuff. The writer demonstrates a partial control of convention and a limited word choice. Okay, so those are the reasons. The next one is also a score 0.1. I'm going to read it out loud. You might want to pause the video and have someone read it out loud. But I'm going to go ahead and read it out loud. When I grow up, okay, that was the title. When I grow up, I would to be a pharmacist. What pharmacies do is they give people medicine and have to have really good memory. Why I would like to be a pharmacist, that I have a really good memory and I would love to help people. Also, pharmacists get paid a lot of money. I have been dreaming my whole entire life about being a pharmacist, and when I'm older, it's going to happen. Also, I can give discounts to my whole family. I would never change my mind. I will never change my mind about being a pharmacist. And also another reason I would be good at it, because I get along with people. When I grow up also, I am going to work only from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that's what I would like to be when I grow up. This is considered a very limited writing performance. Go ahead and talk within your group about why do you believe they received a score 0.1. What are some things that I see? Again, I think I see that they have an idea about conventions, capitalization, punctuation. They know how to construct sentences. What I see is the repetition of the idea. It's just repetition. When I be a pharmacist, I want to do this. When I be a pharmacist, I want to do this. And It's just a continual repetition of the idea. It's just saying it in a little different way, not adding enough. To me, it needed more detail, and it needed the repetition of the same idea over and over again, I thought brought it down to a 1. And then they sort of just brought in some things haphazardly. Oh, and then I only want to work when I'm go here. And then I'm going to make sure my family, I don't charge my family. What they said, give discounts. And then I went and I said, I will never change my mind. I was thinking I will never charge them. But that wasn't even related to that idea. So let's look at what TA gave them. The writer of this very limited writing performance establishes the clear central idea that she wants to become a pharmacist. The writer provides a number of reasons for a choice, however the focus is weak. The ideas are randomly presented. For example, the writer abruptly shifts from why she would make a good pharmacist to what the rewards of a good job might be back to why she would make a good pharmacist. That's what I was trying to say. The insertion of general statements related to becoming a pharmacist. I've been dreaming my whole life this would be being a pharmacist, as well as the repetition of transitions also to connect ideas, contributes to the poor organization in the response. Although the writer demonstrates a general control of conventions, the essay overall is insubstantial. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Basic writing performance. Let's go ahead and do it the same way. Go ahead and see if you can notice a difference in the language between a score point 1, or I'm sorry, very limited and basic writing performance as far as organization and progression. You might want to pause the video. On this one, I noticed that it says the organizing structure is evident, but it may not always be appropriate. So they will have responded to the prompt in the form of expository. They will have responded to the demands of the prompt, written about what they're supposed to. It may not be the clearest thing, but they will have done that. In the other one, it was inappropriate. The other one, the central idea was a problem. In this one, it's weak, it's unclear, but the other one was insubstantial. The progression of ideas is not always logical, which means it could be somewhat logical and controlled. You have sometimes repetition and wordiness. In the other one, we had an abuse of that. So minor disruptions in flow. And then sentence-to-sentence connections are too perfunctory or weak. They don't exist. They're just going from one to another, the transitions. So let's look at what we see under development of ideas. Development of ideas and language. Let's see the difference. Go ahead and do the same thing. Look in your group, read it, talk in your group about what do you notice about the difference in language. The development of ideas is minimal. The essay is superficial. That's different from the other. It reflects little or no thoughtfulness. Develops the essay in a manner that demands only or demonstrates only limited understanding and expository writing tasks. So they're doing it. They're developing it somewhat, but not enough. Their word choice may be general or imprecise, but at least they have tried some out, and they're using it, but it's general. It's okay. It contributes somewhat. It reflects a basic awareness of the expository task, but it's okay. But it's not like it was in a 1. Sentences are awkward and somewhat controlled. So go ahead and read the last 2 bullets and see if we see a change in language. Sentences are awkward and only somewhat controlled. The writer demonstrates a partial command of sentence boundaries and age-appropriate spelling, capitalization, and punctuation. It says partial command. It says little or no command in the other. Distracting errors may be evident, but they only create minor disruptions in fluency. So some meaning is lost, but you can still get the gist of it. So those things do not detract from that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the next one. And it's sample number 1. Do you have a job that you want to do one day? I do. I want to be a police officer. I want to be a police officer because you have a lot of weapons. I want to be a police officer because you can catch burglars, stealers, and killers. And you can be a hero for catching a really, really bad guy. You can get a gold medal too. Here's the awesome part. You can ride in a police car. If you like an action and weapons, then I highly recommend you be a police officer when you grow up. So this received a score point 2 under basic. Now why is that? Go back over the rubric, talk to your group, and try to figure out if you can see why TA would have given a score point 2. And let's look at the evidence. from this writing sample. You can see that the person clearly knew what to do as far as this is an expository writing sample. Oh, this is an expository writing task. That the structure is there. You can also see that they have a central idea. They know one thing that they'd like to be, and they explained why. Now the explanation needed more detail, but it was sufficient. They gave a little bit more detail. Burglars, stealers, and killers. You can be here for catching a really, really bad guy. Now this needs more, but it's a basic writing sample. It's better than what we read before because we had a hard time following in the others when it was a score point 1. TEA says, the writer establishes a clear central idea that he wants to be a police officer and uses an organizing structure that is appropriate to the expository task. Although the writer provides several specific reasons for his choice, these reasons are only briefly presented, causing the development to be superficial. The writer's word choice and control of conventions is adequate, but the overall development of this ideas is minimal. That's what I was thinking, resulting in a basic writing performance. It needed more. It needed more. They had some good points, and if they just had developed them more, this would have been a score point 3 or 4. Here's the next score point 2. You'll notice it's a little bit longer. When I grow up, I want to be an animal cop. Animal cops are people who go and help the animals. When the owner wants its animals back, they have to go to court. When they have the animals for good, they take it to the vet and try to find a better home for it. This is why I want to be an animal cop. It's because they help the animals and I love helping animals. Also, I am good for the job because I can run, jump, and scream at people and be I can't read that word. Reasonable maybe at times. Plus I love animals, and someone wants a pet, then they take better care of it. Also, they try to find a better home to live in. Also, what inspires me is my aunt, because she has 3 dogs that she rescued herself. And their names are Princess, Diego, and Grace. Plus, she saved a baby skunk and a baby kitten, and for that kitten, she stopped 4 rows of traffic, and she is my hero. And that is why I want to be an animal cop, even if it means I have to move. So, for now, on get an animal as a pet at the pound. Okay, talk in your groups about what you think. Maybe some of the reasons why this person received a score point 2 basic writing performance. I think that their conventions are pretty decent. There were some spelling problems I had a few times that tripped me up when I just look at it. I'm thinking about some of the positives. They gave some examples, but they repeated some things a few times. Why they want to be a cop, and then they rambled on a few places. Then they went on to the ant and why the ant is inspiring. So it's from the animal cop central idea. And so some parts were good, and then it just sort of moved places that distracted me. So that's what I thought. And so when I'm looking at it, some of the spelling did the same. And about the baby kitten, which was a great visual. I like that. But maybe I should have written about, I want to be just like my aunt when I grow up. But it is definitely a 2. But just with some tweaks, it could be a 3 or a 4. In this basic writing performance, the writer establishes a central idea. He wants to be an animal cop and attempts to explain an explanation for his choice. While the organizing structure of the essay is appropriate to the expository task, the writer's progression of ideas is not always controlled exactly. Repetition of ideas that animal cops help animals and animal cops try to find better homes for animals disrupts the flow. The progression is further weakened by the perfunctory transitions, also and plus, the writer uses to attempt to connect ideas. The writer lists the qualities that he thinks makes him suitable for an occupation and provides an example of Zan's inspiring behavior. But the development overall remains superficial. It had some good points. It's just a matter of tweaking some of that progression. The writer demonstrates age-appropriate spelling, but only a partial command of sentence boundaries. Let's go to satisfactory writing performance. That's a 3. And so we're going to go through the whole three things this time. And what I would like you to do is go through organization progression, development of ideas, word choice, and conventions. And then we'll go ahead and talk about the certain things that we saw, the differences. Okay, so I'm going to go through these parts of the PowerPoint, but I'd like you to go through the whole thing with your group, and then we'll talk about what we see. Okay, under organization and progression, the essay's clear this time. They use organizational strategies. They know what they're supposed to be doing. It's adequately suited. You see, it's adequately suited. Establishes a clear central idea. And most of the ideas go along with that. The progression is logical and controlled. This time the transitions are meaningful. There are sentence-to-sentence connections that help support the flow instead of detract from. Development of ideas. It's sufficient. The examples and the details and illustrations are specific and appropriate. And the reason why they're appropriate is because they add some substance. It reflects some thoughtfulness, while the other one said little thoughtfulness. The word choice is clear and specific. Explanatory purpose establishes a tone appropriate to the task, way different. And the word choice contributes to the quality and clarity of the essay. So let's look at the conventions. Sentences are varied, adequately controlled, adequate command of sentence boundaries, and all the other jazz. Errors may be evident, but they create few, if any, disruptions in the fluency of the writing. They don't affect the clarity. So that's what we see from that point. And so let's see what one of those would look like. When I grow up, I want to be a fashion designer because I love to draw dresses, shoes, shirts, and skirts. I think this would be a fun job because the clothes you make sometimes get shipped all over the world. I'm going to go to the Institutes of Art to study fashion. I hope my dream comes true. My logo will be little circles overlapping each other. If this doesn't work out well, I might be a teacher. I'm going to work in New York in a very tall building. Fashion is my dream, and if my dream comes true, it would make me very happy. I have a binder only for fashion at home, and it has seasons in each folder. One time, I made a dress that turned out pretty well. For my birthday, I got a sewing machine so I can make clothes. Now all I need is to study in New York and become famous, and I'm all set. That is what I want to do or be when I grow up. Notice the difference, big difference between a 1 and a 2. This was a joy to read. This was good. It was good. I actually enjoyed reading that. Let's see what they say. And what did you think? The writer establishes a clear central idea that she wants to be a fashion designer. Although a minor lapse in focus, the reference to being a teacher is if being a fashion designer doesn't work out, weakens the unity of the essay. That was what I was talking about. Overall, however, the organizing structure of the essay is adequately suited to the expository task. Although transitions would make the sentence-to-sentence connections clearer, the relationship between ideas are logical. The writer includes specific details to describe her path to becoming a fashion designer, where she will study and work and what steps she is taking towards realizing her dream. Basically, very good piece. It's not a 4, because if their transitions were better and if she had more complex sentences, because that's what TA likes. They like the compound and the complex sentences. It could have been 4, but it was enjoyable to read. Here's another one. Handwriting is beautiful. I wonder how does the coach do it? Over the past 3 years, I have been watching this coach lead and teach this team. It inspires me to be a football coach, to the person who can be the boss or the chief to all the players. If I was coach, I would be the best coach ever. Sometimes before a game, I would give inspiring speeches to help the players before the game starts. I would care if we won or lost, and I would just want to teach my players new things. I want to be a coach because I want to be a leader and to be one in charge of everybody. If there was a game going on and the score was really close and we had the ball, I would call a timeout and tell my team what play to do, and maybe they would score. I would be fair to everyone, and if someone did something wrong, I would just say, try harder next time. I would do anything to get the players ready for the season. I would hire wise guys just for certain players and talk to the team. I would have 20 practices a week just to get the team ready for the season. That's why I want to be a coach. Okay, so we have a clear idea about why this person wants to be a coach and what they would do. What do you think? Why did this receive a score of 0.3? Go ahead and talk in your group. And you might want to pause this video. This is what TEA says. The central idea of this essay is the writer's desire to be a coach who is a leader. Definitely. The writer develops his central idea by proposing a series of hypothetical coaching and game examples, game situations, and predicting his behavior in each situation. The writer's approach to the topic is original, and the specific description of his actions in each example adds some substance to the essay. Although transitions are needed to progress more smoothly from one example to example, or from one example to example, the relationships among ideas are clear. In addition, the writer demonstrates an adequate control of sentences and age-appropriate conventions. They like transitions, but they like transitional phrases, prepositional phrases. They like to have those complex sentences. Anyway, so let's move on to the next one. Accomplished writing performance. Yay! Alright, so we're going to do the same thing. Go ahead and look through organization and progression. Then move on to development of ideas. And then on to word choice. And on to conventions. As you do that, pay attention to the change in vocabulary from a 3 to a 4. And then we're going to look at 2 writing samples. You might want to pause the video while you're doing it. And please have a discussion about what you notice. Say, organization and progression. What did you notice? What I noticed is clearly appropriate. It was adequate before, now it's clearly appropriate. So they know what they're supposed to be doing. They have it organized, they know where they're going. They have a clear central idea, and all the ideas strongly relate to that central idea. The progression is logical, well controlled, they have meaningful transitions, and I'm sure we're going to find our complex sentences. We're going to see those complex sentences with those independent, dependent clauses. I'm just telling you. I have a feeling that's what we're going to see because I know that's what TA likes. And then we see that they have relationships among the ideas. So let's go on to the next part. Development of ideas is effective because details, examples are specific and well chosen, this time adding substance to the essay. Thoughtful and engaged. Okay. Choose his or her own unique experience and view of the world as a basis for writing. Okay. The last one, word choice is purposeful and precise. That adds that word choice adds a lot to the writing. Lots of great vocabulary. Keen awareness of the expository purpose. The word choice contributes strongly to the quality and clarity of the essay. Now, accomplished writing performance. Sentences are purposeful, varied, and well controlled, enhancing the effectiveness. Good. Consistent command of sentence boundaries like we had before, but it's consistent. And why? What does it do? You might have some minor errors. They don't detract from the fluency. Because of the conventions, the strength of the conventions, it contributes to the effectiveness of the essay. So each part affects the other, and it works together. And so let's read this one. Everybody in the world will one day have a career. There is a variety of reasons. There are a variety of choices in careers. Some people choose when they're young, and others choose when they're older. What I want to be is a doctor. One reason why I want to be a doctor is because they help people. They take care of minor things like fevers, to deadly things like cancer. Doctors are always there when you need them, even when you're sleepy. So if you ever have a medical issue, a doctor is ready for you. But to be a doctor, you have to do well in school. I see some of those complex sentences, those transitional phrases. I can see them. To be a doctor, you need to get good grades in school. Sometimes you get to pick which classes you take. So pick classes that go along with your career. Try to learn as much as possible about that subject. If you get good grades in school, good colleges will pick you. The better your grades, the better school. Also, if you work hard, you can get a scholarship to medical school. The last reason why I want to be a doctor is that they get a good pay. You could get a good house and a nice car. If you want to, you could donate money to to an organization or a shelter. Or you could just save the money for times you need something. Some people give it to their kids for college. There are many different ways to spend money. Being a doctor may take some work, but when you become one, you see all the positive things. People would admire you because you went through all the hard, I can't read that, in becoming a person you are. When I grow up, the one career I want to be is a doctor. Okay. And let's look and let's see. Talk to each other about why you think this is a score point 4. And then going through the rubric and using the evidence from this. Now, I'm going to go back to this. As you're talking to everyone, I'm going to go ahead and give you my ideas. He gave varied reasons, or he or she, about why they want to be a doctor, and they were organized. You had to study hard. You might get a scholarship. You need to do this, and you could help people. You could have money. You can give your money to organizations and shelters. People would admire you. Lots of good reasons. But here's what TA says. The writer establishes a central idea that she wants to become a doctor and uses the organizational strategy well suited to the expository task. She develops a central idea through a methodical exploration of different aspects of being a doctor, why this profession is important, how one attains the skills needed, and what the rewards might be. The progression of ideas is logical and well controlled because every idea presented is strongly related to the central idea and contributes to a unified, coherent essay. Okay. Specific details about the challenges and rewards of becoming a doctor are thoughtfully presented, reflecting the writer's personal approach to the topic. The writer demonstrates a consistent command of conventions that contribute to the fluency and effectiveness of this accomplished writing performance. Also say they used a lot of complex sentences in here too. The transitions work very well. I think they were wowed by the vocabulary as well. The word choice. I was. Okay, let's look at the last one. Hey, we're at the last one. Woohoo! Here we go. Click. This one's a lot easier for me to read, by the way. Click. I was on my computer going on YouTube to listen to music, but then I clicked on the wrong song. On the other hand, that song had almost 500 million views. Then I thought that being a lead singer is the best job you can have. You're usually super rich, and who wouldn't want to be chased by all the fans who love you? I think it would be awesome seeing tons of people wearing a shirt with your face right in the center. You can hear the songs you created on the radio that billions of people listen to. Your face sometimes is in the cover of a magazine. People are screaming your name every time they see a photo of you. When you perform a concert, sometimes it is recorded on TV. You get to meet all the singers that inspired you to be a singer, and later you could meet the singer that got inspired by you. Wow. Then you could tour the world, buying so many expensive and nice outfits. You're so rich that you could buy a cruise ship or 7-story mansion. And you're so famous, they make a new book with your name in it. Being rich and famous is my dream, and I really hope it comes true. Yeah, this person did a really good job. Definitely is a 4 without question. What do you think? Why does it become a 4? What makes it a 4? And if you could cite things from the rubric as well as things from this piece of writing. It's a good piece of writing. I know myself as a reader, as I was reading, I was able to visualize because of the way they wrote. I was thinking of these pop singers that are out now, like One Direction and Justin Bieber and I don't know, all the ones that the girls go crazy over. They're screaming and they're on TV, and all these things gave great examples of what it was like, and lots of visuals to me as a reader. There was not one time which I was dropped as far as my attention. It was a good piece of writing. Vocabulary was great. Billions of people, million views, brought in YouTube, 7-story mansion, nice outfits, inspired, rich, and I just really liked it. Let's see what TEA said. The writer of this accomplished writing performance uses a personal anecdote to introduce the central idea that she wants to be a lead singer. By organizing the essay around the benefits of becoming a lead singer, specifically being wealthy and famous, the writer is able to create and sustain a strong focus. Relationships among ideas are clear, making the writer's train of thought easy to follow. Specific, well-chosen details add substance to the essay. Through purposeful and precise word choice, the writer maintains an engaging tone appropriate to the expository task. Varied and well-controlled sentences, definitely, as well as strong conventions, contribute to the effectiveness of the essay. I personally like this, maybe because I have more background knowledge, because my daughter loves One Direction. Very good piece of writing. So what are the next steps? Well, you're going to be scoring 6 student papers, and these have been scored by TEA. They're not part of the scoring guide. They're part of what we have in Spring Branch. And you're going to score it. You're going to look at the rubric. Please remember, we want to have the rubric in hand and also the TEA scoring guide in hand when we do this, so we can always go back if we're confused. Well, is it this or is it this? I don't know. And let me look at the rubric, and let me look at the scoring guide, just to keep recalibrating ourselves. Then share your score with a partner after you're done with the set of 6, and then see how they scored. Combine those scores and you'll get your adjacent score. And then, as you go through each one in the PowerPoint, the next PowerPoint, you're going to check your scores against what TEA said. You may agree, or you might even in some cases disagree. But the point is having that conversation, working through the understanding of the rubric with the scoring guide, and processing what makes it a 1, 2, 3, and a 4. You're going to have some in-betweeners, the ones that go from 0 to 8 as well. Here's some contact information. My name is Maureen Nicholas. If you need to contact me, there's my email, and there is also my cell phone.